Kennedy runs frantically through the rundown neighborhood to Banda's house. His wife is in labor, and he urgently asks Banda for transport to the hospital. Banda demands more money, claiming he's their only option. Kennedy hands over all the money he has. At Kennedy's mother's house, his wife Chama is in labor while Kennedy's sister Feli comforts her. Chama's mother-in-law remains indifferent to the situation. Kennedy returns, frustrated about Banda's behavior during this emergency. At the hospital, Kennedy paces nervously while his wife gives birth. During this time, he and his mother discuss his late father, which leads Kennedy to plead for his mother to accept Chama. He tells her they want to name the child after his late father, and she reluctantly agrees. Time passes, and Kennedy storms angrily outside the delivery room, ignoring calls from his mother and sister. Concerned, they rush inside to find that the baby is albino. His mother immediately rejects her grandchild and tells Chama she's no longer welcome in their home. Left alone in the hospital, Chama initially refuses to look at her baby, but a kind nurse gently persuades her to see newborn Joseph. Later, when Chama returns to the family house, Kennedy's sister warmly welcomes the baby, but his mother rejects him. Kennedy denies Joseph as his son, packs Chama's bags, and calls a taxi to take them away. Years later, Joseph has grown into a young boy. Though homeschooled by his mother, he longs to join the children playing outside. The man Joseph calls Daddy, Martin the taxi driver who drove Chama away years ago, arrives with a toy car hidden behind his back. When Joseph asks to play with it outside, Martin hesitantly tells him to stay in his room. Chama confides in Martin about her growing concerns for Joseph's safety as he gets older. When Martin suggests having more children to protect Joseph, Chama's mood darkens, and she says she's not ready. That night, Joseph watches neighborhood children gathered around a campfire, telling stories about a village madman who throws children down his well. The story frightens Joseph, and Chama warns him the madman will come for him if he doesn't go to bed. The next morning, Chama's friend Brenda suggests that homeschooling Joseph forever isn't sustainable, but Chama dismisses this, insisting it's safer. Their conversation ends abruptly when they notice Joseph's unusual silence and find his room empty. Joseph enjoys riding his new toy car around the neighborhood until he encounters the local children. Despite his friendly approach, they taunt him, push him around, and throw him to the ground. His mother arrives just in time to scatter them. At home, Chama tends to Joseph's bruises before sending him to bed. When Brenda suggests talking to the children's parents, Chama dismisses it as human nature. Brenda counters by mentioning Martin, using this opportunity to encourage Chama to let Martin have a child of his own. But Chama refuses, fearing history might repeat itself. That evening, Martin explains to Joseph about his albinism and why people react differently to things they don't understand. Joseph declares he'll teach them he's not dangerous. When Joseph asks if he'll become brown like Martin when he grows up, Martin simply tells him to go to bed. The next morning, Joseph spots the neighborhood children playing with his toy car. He goes to retrieve it, but they try to bully him again. Joseph manages to snatch it back and runs away with the children in pursuit. He finds refuge in a compound, but the other children won't follow, warning that it's the madman's house. When the man appears, Joseph begs not to be thrown down the well. The man laughs and offers to fix Joseph's toy. After repairing the toy, the man performs a beautiful piece on his guitar, helping Joseph relax. Joseph realizes the man, like himself, has been wrongly judged, and they shake hands in understanding. On his first day of school, Joseph faces whispers and stares from his classmates, with no one offering him a seat, except Sharon. The teacher commends Sharon's kindness and encourages the class to follow her example. Joseph and Sharon become close friends, walking home together. Sharon shares her dream of becoming a lawyer, while Joseph expresses his passion for music. Sharon gives Joseph her mother's music theory book. At a local bar, village thugs spot the children walking home from school. They identify Joseph as valuable, calling him a diamond, and begin plotting to capture him. At home, Joseph shows Chama the music theory book from Sharon. When his mother teases him about having a crush, he laughs it off, saying they're just friends. Joseph visits the so-called madman to share stories about his first day at school. When he mentions Sharon and asks for dating advice, the man jokes that in his day, the key was through music. Joseph eagerly begs to learn guitar, and the man agrees, provided lessons happen after school. One day when Sharon is absent, bullies surround Joseph, taunting that his bodyguard can't save him. This encounter leaves Joseph dejected during his guitar lesson, but the madman teaches him an encouraging mantra that helps restore his confidence and leads to excellent playing. When Chama questions Joseph's whereabouts that evening, he initially lies about staying late at school before admitting to taking guitar lessons from the madman. Though Chama disapproves, Joseph pleads with her to understand that the man, like Joseph himself, is simply misunderstood. The next day, while walking home from school, Sharon and Joseph are ambushed by the thugs who had been watching them. They grab Joseph, and Sharon runs to get help. She finds a farmer and directs him to Joseph's location before rushing to alert Chama. They race back, followed by concerned villagers. Meanwhile, one thug pins Joseph down while another attempts to mutilate him. After the first cut to Joseph's leg, the attacker freezes at the sight of blood. As his partner urges him to continue, the farmer arrives and tackles the assailant, causing the other to flee. Sharon, Chama, and the villagers arrive to find Joseph unconscious and bleeding. At the hospital, Martin and Chama wait anxiously for Joseph to regain consciousness. When he wakes, they comfort him as he questions why people want to hurt him. Martin explains again that people often hurt what they don't understand out of fear. Back home, Chama expresses suspicion about the madman's involvement. She tells Martin to keep Joseph away from him. When Martin mentions releasing the young attacker, believing he was coerced, Chama strongly objects. Martin observes that her aversion to all children except Joseph might explain her reluctance to have more children. Chama finally confesses her fear of history repeating itself. Martin comforts her and promises to move them to the city, where his taxi business will thrive and they'll be safer. After his recovery, Joseph visits the madman one night, but the man sends him away. Heartbroken, Joseph asks why. The man turns, hands Joseph his guitar, and tells him to continue learning on his own. Joseph leaves devastated, saying he thought the man was the only person who truly understood him. One day at school, Auntie Brenda arrives with tears in her eyes. Martin and Chama have died in a car accident. At their funeral, Joseph performs a moving song that brings everyone to tears. That night, Joseph asks Auntie Brenda about his biological father, revealing he overheard Martin discussing having his own child. Brenda can only embrace him, promising everything will be alright. During discussions about the estate, Chama's family decides to send Joseph to his biological father, who has become wealthy. Despite Brenda's objections about returning Joseph to the environment that once rejected him, the family stands firm. Joseph, who has been eavesdropping, confronts Brenda about abandoning him and runs away crying. When Brenda catches up, Joseph voices his fears about his father's rejection. Though Brenda assures him this won't happen, Joseph questions why his father abandoned him in the first place. Joseph bids farewell to Sharon, and a taxi takes him to Kennedy's mansion. While Joseph and his uncle wait for Kennedy's arrival, Kennedy's wife tries to engage them, but the uncle insists on waiting. Kennedy enters, surprised to find them there. Over dinner, Joseph's uncle informs Kennedy of Chama's death. Kennedy's wife, disturbed by the news, demands to know who Chama is. Learning she was Kennedy's ex-wife, she becomes angry and nearly orders them to leave until Kennedy intervenes. She storms from the table while Kennedy sits in contemplative silence. Later, Joseph shares the living room with his step-siblings. When Kennedy asks his daughter to fetch him a drink, she refuses to serve that kind of person, but complies when Kennedy raises his voice. The next day, Kennedy's wife claims money is missing and confronts Joseph. Despite his denials, she finds the money in his room and demands Kennedy punish him. Though Joseph protests his innocence, Kennedy beats him with a belt. Later, the housemaid apologizes to Joseph, revealing the wife forced her to plant the money. Joseph enrolls in Bemba School, where he meets his friendly roommate Chimolwa, who notices his guitar and introduces him to the music room. Joseph's performance impresses everyone. Years pass, and Joseph's musical talent flourishes, with his roommate remaining his biggest supporter. His performances consistently earn enthusiastic applause. One day, Joseph literally runs into Sharon, who has transferred to his school. After their happy reunion, he helps her find her classroom. Later, she watches him perform and, impressed, mentions knowing a producer who might help him. Joseph's music gains citywide popularity, playing on all radio stations. As his fame grows, fans demand live performances. When Joseph announces his first concert, tickets sell out immediately. Backstage, he battles stage fright until Sharon, now his girlfriend, encourages him. Auntie Brenda appears, hugging him proudly and mentioning someone who wants to see him. In the dressing room, Joseph finds Kennedy, his biological father. When Kennedy expresses pride in Joseph's success, Joseph confronts him about his absence during the difficult years. Kennedy explains his deep love for Chama and admits his cowardice in not protecting Joseph. As he turns to leave, Joseph stops him with words of forgiveness. Joseph returns to stage and delivers an outstanding performance. Afterward, he visits his childhood village to give his guitar to his old friend, the madman, thanking him for his unwavering support. They share the old mantra and embrace, coming full circle. Make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications for more videos like this. Thanks for watching, until next time.